subscribe button below. Now let's get into it. France has become the Muslim world's most hated country in the West. It has turned white Western feminist tropes about Islam into laws that discriminate against Muslim women, which has made France the envy of secular extremists around the world, who now wish to pass similar laws banning Muslim women from wearing the hijab in public spaces. In reality, these laws are designed to make Muslim women invisible in the West, because somehow white Western feminists have fooled themselves into believing they're saving Muslim women from an oppressive and misogynistic religious belief.
Muslim women, especially in today's society, are so often told our own narrative.
A lot of non-Muslims have like this image on us Muslim women that we are oppressed, uneducated, fragile women, when in reality we're not.
I think we just want to be able to tell our stories and to be normal people in society.
But what these white Western feminists are really doing is perpetuating the same racist lies European colonial powers told about populations they wish to control in Africa and the Middle East during the previous century.
To colonizers, the veil was backward and signified the oppression of women and the primitiveness of Islam. Egyptian and Algerians who veiled were the least civilized. Indians who partially veiled were more civilized. Europeans who didn't veil at all were civilization. And by colonizing countries, they were bringing civilization to inferior people. So Europe's project to unveil women symbolically and literally was about civilizing Muslim societies and served as a political justification for colonization.
In other words, these anti-hijab laws are not about liberating Muslim women from religious oppression, but instead are motivated by a desire to control and subjugate their bodies, which is, ironically, the exact opposite of feminism. I mean, how else do you explain this? The double standards Western feminists apply to Muslim women could hardly be more obvious.
People wouldn't ask a woman, you know, in a bikini on a beach, do you think that the way that you dress like makes you unequal?
Like nuns cover up, and I don't feel like anybody questions their motives behind it. It's to get close to God, and that's what they wear. That's sort of like their habit is like their uniform and their sign of their devotion to God. But if a Muslim woman's wearing it, it's because you're oppressed. You obviously, you know, you're being forced to wear it.
It's always how we look. It's always the veil, when it's like there's so much more going on. There's so much more to Muslim women than just that, and like that's quite sexist to me.
This singling out of Muslim women comes from only one place: total and complete ignorance about Islam. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad was the first man in human history to legislate laws granting equal rights to women.
My frustration is that people talk about Islam without knowing anything about it, and they're willing to completely negate any of my rights as a human being, as a woman, as a person with agency, simply because they have an idea about what my faith is about. Excuse me, Islam to me is the most feminist religion, right? We got equal rights well before the Europeans. We don't take our husbands' last names because we ain't their property.
But here's what too many Western feminists get wrong about Islam. They conflate Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the Taliban with Islam, when in reality, these governments are illustrative only of repressive authoritarian regimes that use religion as a tool to subjugate their respective populations.
A closer look at the inequality women face in certain countries shows that it is not Islam or Islamic teaching which promote oppression, but oppressive governments using religion to maintain control over the people. One frequent example is Saudi Arabia, where women suffer some of the worst inequality in the world. Their prohibition from driving or leaving the home without a chaperone comes up again and again in the media. But Saudi Arabian oppression extends to many other groups, including minorities and even other sects of Islam. And those rules against women driving aren't found in any other country. In other words, oppression in Saudi Arabia is largely a problem with Saudi Arabia, not with Islam.
But when Western feminists base their criticisms of Islam on Saudi Arabia or Iran, they ignore how Muslim women have flourished in many other Muslim countries, such as Indonesia, Turkey, Malaysia, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, which have each elected women as presidents and prime ministers. Meanwhile, the United States has elected exactly 0 women to the country's highest political office. But somehow it's Muslim women who need saving from white Western feminists who are now pushing for even tougher laws against them. In France, they now even want to ban Muslim women from wearing a hijab while playing sport.
En tout cas, en tant que femme musulmane, on a beaucoup de barrières qu'on rencontre, que ce soit à l'école, que ce soit dans le milieu du sport, que ce soit pour trouver un travail. C'est le talent qui devrait être reconnu et pas ce qu'on porte sur la tête, ni notre couleur de peau, notre religion ou quoi. On est sur le terrain pour jouer au foot, donc Voilà, c'est le talent qui doit être reconnu et rien d'autre.
Ultimately, Western feminists are hiding behind feminism and secularism to deny equal rights to Muslim women. Forcing Muslim women to remove clothing from their bodies is the secular version of religious extremism, and no less oppressive than the Taliban forcing Muslim women to wear the niqab. We must not forget that secular extremism and the singling out of religious minorities is what led to the Holocaust and the Soviet gulags in the previous century. And we must also remember that concentration camps and genocide never start with mass murder, they start with words, and then laws that gradually chip away at the rights of a targeted group. But more to the point, white Western feminists need to check their Islamophobia at the door, because not one of them made a fuss when white women were wearing the hijab as a popular fashion accessory in the 1970s, which clearly demonstrates their concern is not with liberating Muslim women, but about controlling their bodies. Instead, they should look to countries like India, where Muslim women are being forced against their will to remove their hijab by oppressive Hindu nationalist forces. Feminism must concern itself with defending human rights, not taking them away from those who don't need saving from white Western feminist saviors. Anyway, that's my time for today. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and we kindly ask you please support this endeavor by becoming a member of this show at patreon.com/CJWellerman. We can't produce, sustain and grow this show without your help, and we offer exclusive benefits to those who do.